afternoon, everyone. This is Nazreen Ibrahim with AI Africa Report. We generally try to come to you every Thursday, and today we have an extremely exciting guest. I've been talking to him since last year, and finally we've made some time to actually sit down amidst our busy schedules and have a conversation around the very important work he's doing as a leading voice of AI development and deployment on the African continent, but also about his thoughts. So it gives you, it's my great pleasure to welcome Darlington Akogo to AI Africa Report today. Welcome, Darlington.
Thank you for having me, Nazreen. I look forward to our conversation.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for making the time to do this. You are currently moving house. You've won a new research grant for a project. You're traveling across multiple countries on the continent. So it's a busy time for you, I know. But before we kick off, I just want to say to the viewers or watching us on Facebook, as well as going to watch us on YouTube here, the AI Africa Report aims to be Africa's most comprehensive portal of research and knowledge from African continent for AI. So we are going to endeavor to get every stakeholder we can, and the people who are doing really important work, like Darlington, to talk to you. But today, let's profile Darlington. So Darlington, I want to kick off, and firstly, I want to say to our viewers that you are the Executive Director for Mino Health AI, Karago Agro AI. Of course, Kudra is it seems to be the umbrella body for the different companies. And you are the AI for radiology lead at the United Nations ITU and WHO focus group on AI for health. They're indeed important portfolios that you're managing or you have a hand in. Tell me, please, and tell us, what prompted you to begin Kudra Studios?
Yeah. So, I was fortunate enough to have passion towards technology at a very early age. We had probably I started programming at the age of 14, 15 because I had friends that were into technology. So I definitely knew that is what I wanted to do. So Kudra Studio was sort of a follow-up to that. I'm a young person, but I've been in technology for probably about 10 years now. So we went from developing softwares, websites. So Kudra Studio was perfectly the next version of that we were targeting emerging technologies. So all these advanced technologies that are being explored across the globe, especially in the western parts of the world. We wanted to take those technologies and use them to solve tough problems in Africa, because we actually believe that the fullest or the most better potential of these technologies can be recognized in Africa. So that was the whole idea behind it, and we formed it. And each subsidiary or each project under that is reflective of that bigger vision, just maybe focus on different sectors.
You know, you've explained a really good basis from which you established Kudra Studio and why AI seemed to be the natural way to explore challenge solutions to existing challenges. Which brings me to my next question. You run Mino Health, Miller AI Institute, as well as Karago Agro AI. Tell us a little bit more about these companies.
Sure. So Mino Health was one of the first subsidiaries and projects under Kudra. So with Mino Health, the goal was that there are very tough problems in African healthcare, and we believe that certain technologies like AI would be able to allow us to solve those problems, and even more so democratize quality healthcare. So practically what that looks like is that we are using AI systems to develop automated diagnostic systems. So systems that can diagnose diseases even if you have less healthcare experts, which is the challenge in Africa. There are very few qualified experts, there are very few radiologists. So we built AI systems that can be able to detect diseases, they can forecast diseases, prognose diseases, just getting data. So yeah, that's the general idea behind Mino Health. Connected to that, we've been able to do a number of research, just exploring how far AI could go in healthcare. We've built actual systems for detecting diseases like breast cancer, pneumonia, fibrosis, hernia. We are testing those systems with healthcare facilities in Ghana. We also have research collaborations. A recent grant was actually connected to that. So we have a project with Imperial College London, which has to do with digital diagnostics, combining AI and then handheld devices that you can use to detect infectious diseases. So that is still connected to Mino Health. With Rand Miller, what we realized was that to be able to build these technologies, we need to have a lot of people within Africa who can be part of this effort, who can contribute to this journey of building AI solutions. But then you realize that we do not have the capacity, or we have quite a gap when it comes to the capacity to build this technology. So the goal of Rand Miller was that let's train these people. Let's not just say, hey, or end up like some of these companies you go look within the team and it's all non-Africans, but they say they are building African solutions. That is not really the best way to go about it. So Rand Miller was started with the objective of training people who will then be able to build the necessary AI solutions that Africa needs. So we've managed to train a lot of people. We have a lot of upcoming activities, partnering with companies and training institutions in South Africa as well, like Zindi Africa and the rest. So we actually also have a training program coming up that is going to be across Africa, Europe, the Caribbeans, and then the Pacific regions. So yeah, we're going to do very huge training across different continents. Just all in line with growing capacity. With Kara Agro, the objective is similar to Mino Health. The only difference is that the focus is in agriculture. So there are also issues in agriculture. So we want to help farmers be able to fight diseases and pests. So if Africa has a major challenge when it comes to achieving food security, we have a lot of issues along the lines of waste, pests, diseases, and other things that affect the farm. And so if we are trying to solve these problems, we might have to change our approach to agriculture. And so using artificial intelligence and drones, we are able to at least improve quite a number of aspects of the farming processes. So we fly drones on the farm, and then using AI system, we can detect a number of issues happening on the farm and alert farmers that, hey, this crop has an issue. And then you get to deal with it quickly before it starts to spread. We're also working with some research institutions to even develop more effective breeds of crops. So these are crops that will have resistance to specific diseases and pests. So yeah, that's what we're doing with Kara Agro AI as well.
So I find that what you've done is, and it's an effective model, according to my understanding, is you're not just building actual capabilities through using AI for the two areas that are critical challenges for our citizens on the continent, which is health and food security. But you're also building capacity from within our pool of resources that are comprised of multiple ethnicities, so that the approach can be far more offer far more value in terms of its output when the end user is experiencing the system. Would that be correct to say?
Wait, can you repeat that again? I lost you somewhere in there.
So I think why I like the way you've structured what you've done is you've got Rand Miller Institute, you've got Karago
yes.
of agriculture, but you've also got health. And those two areas, health and food security, are our most critical challenges in this continent. But what you're doing is also building capacity through Rand Miller AI that's specific in terms of taking into account ethnicity, culture, religion, language on this particular continent to better serve the outcomes of the software intended. Because right now we use a lot of global software that may not always serve us best.
I mean, that perfectly encapsulates it. So unfortunately, these problems are connected. There's a capacity issue. There's the fact that the general public still will need to know what AI is and truly appreciate the benefits, and then also ensure that we have people who can actually build the system. So for us, just taking one and trying to solve it, you realize that it cannot be solved in isolation. So you have to connect all this together and then solve them. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for sharing that part of your journey with us, but also making sure that we have as close as possible a realistic solution for our citizens of Africa, because we have such a variety and depth of diversity. And that for me is a huge talking point. Well, we can talk for ages on that, but I know we have other questions to talk about. And one of them is around your experience. So Darlington, what has the experience been like since the inception of your companies as an AI, African AI innovator?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting journey. It's gotten way better. In the beginning, it was really tough. So we started this initiative when 2016, 2017. You realize by then that what AI in Africa looked like back then is entirely different from now. You could say it was literally non-existent in 2016, 2017. It's so easy to not see how quickly things have changed now. There's so much happening across Africa in AI today that it's insane how rapidly those things started happening. So yeah, back then when we started, we're having difficulties, especially in healthcare. That was a very, very sensitive field where you don't just try new things. You have to only use things that you know for certain works. We even had difficulties just getting healthcare personnel to have a meeting with us. They didn't want to, they didn't see a need to. You call someone, you say, hey, we've developed AI solutions that do this, and they ask you, what is AI? And then you explain, they're like, why would you want to do anything like that? Why would you want to make a system diagnose anyone? That is horrible, don't do it. So yeah, it's
beautiful you're getting that question. I don't believe. It's amazing how much of education still has to be done.
It was really, it was crazy because then it felt like what could be done then, because it doesn't matter if you have the solution. The people did not even see the need for the whole point of AI in healthcare to begin with. So that is when education became seriously important. So at that point, we're willing to talk to anyone that would listen about AI. Like, it would be workshops, seminars, summits, anywhere, or just a conversation. Or someone says, hey, I don't understand AI. Come and explain it to me. We would go and explain it. Like, if you just want to listen, we'll tell you about it. So we did that for a while. And then we also realized that, people, because this was a new field, they did not know how to assess it.
Right.
They would have trusted things if it came from a foreign company. So if there was a multinational that had brought it, even if they don't understand, they will say, well, this is a powerful organization, so we'll trust it. So our strategy was that, hey, why not work internationally, get that international reputation, be respected internationally, then use that and bring that back and say, hey, even if you don't understand, look, we've worked on this with this number of institutions and organizations around the world. So at least take us seriously. So we did that, and it was interesting. So once we built up some strong affiliations and work, we did sessions at MIT Bio Summit. So this is part of their biotech initiative, and we did a number of stuff with organization, published papers. I ended up in scientific journals. Did something with, funny enough, Wuhan University. That was way before COVID-19. So
thank God for that.
Come again?
Thanks to God for that it was way before the entire thing.
Little did we know that Wuhan would become very popular around the world.
Absolutely. I remember you saying in a previous seminar I attended of yours that you found as an AI innovator, you have to go outside of the continent to gain credibility before anyone would even start talking to you seriously here. And
Yes.
I can say I concur with your experience because in my journey of starting to understand and build a research group here in South Africa, I'm finding the very same thing. So I agree with you on that.
Yeah, and it's a very unfortunate thing because, for example, in the US, the nation is what boosts its innovators. Like Silicon Valley, innovators that come from it did not need to go and get that sort of reputation elsewhere and then bring it back to the US. The US was the one that was selling it, saying that, hey, we have all these amazing American innovators. But unfortunately, in a lot of African countries, your own people require you to have certain international backing before they really believe you can do what you say you do. But then, so we did that, and then we saw that more and more stakeholders were taking us seriously. So yeah, went through that. You just have to be resilient, and at least in a lot of African countries, you have to be resilient. You have to be willing to adapt your strategy. So we did that. And then here we are, we have a number of partners that we are working with. I mean, things are far from perfect still, but then we've come a really, really long way. We have very good standing with key stakeholders in Ghana and across Africa. And also, we've also built our international affiliations. And so, yeah, if you had asked me before we started how the journey would have gone, the plan I had, and then what actually happened, they look almost nothing alike.
Of course, it would never look the same way, and it just proves the theory that a true entrepreneur understands the journey, right? You have one idea of what you want to do, but you've got to navigate the realistic terrain and the challenges that come with them. I think, would you say then that the challenges, or maybe the kind of feedback or understanding you got from the existing population, right, in our local homes here, is one of the contributing factors that may affect the rapid deployment and development of AI on the continent? Would you say that?
Yes. Yes. Just based on the fact that people were not welcoming of certain ideas, certain technologies, impeded the rapid deployment of these technologies. It has changed a whole lot since then. I mean, as of now, you have people in different sectors that would call us that, hey, we want AI solutions, or we know AI is being used in the banking sector, it's being used in the telecommunications sector. Can you provide us something? So things have changed a whole lot. But that acceptance really goes a long way to affect the technology. And one interesting kind of, to just go back to the earlier point, is that we realized that fighting the mental health battle in the beginning was tough. But as we were able to address that, starting Akogo was very easy. Different sectors, but just based on the fact that we had done certain things right, we could use that as basis to enter other sectors. And then now the other sectors that we are not having any sort of relationship with, but then they are the ones saying that we want AI solutions. So if you want to build new emerging tech solutions in a country where they don't already are welcoming to these ideas, you have to be willing to play the long-term game and do that education. If not, you build cool technologies that no one is going to use because they don't even see why they should use it. So yeah, that's definitely one of the challenges.
And thank you for explaining that in a bit of detail, though it just be one of the challenges, because I think we can talk at length about multiple challenges and the maybe possible ways in which to address them. But I'm saving those for future conversations I want to have with you. So I think where I'd like to lead our conversation now is, there are many things you've been studying in not only building your businesses from an AI perspective, but about being a major voice for AI on the continent. What is your view, or what do you understand by AI ethics, Darlington?
So AI ethics will generally be somewhere connected to the idea of what is right and wrong. So in a very loose term, you can associate that with morality. But then some aspect of AI ethics is strongly connected to the legal aspect, and some of it is not purely legal. It's just what you're doing, is it right or wrong? At the core, that is right about it. Is it right or wrong? So there are laws and regulations that will guide you as opposed to what you can and cannot do in AI. Those are important. But then again, if you are an ethical person, you wouldn't necessarily say, okay, the law allows for, or the law does not say I can't do this, it's wrong, but I'll still do it. So you look for loopholes. So at the core, it's just about what is right or wrong, but then there are need for laws and regulations to guide that instead of just trusting that people will do the right thing.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on that, because I was saying to someone yesterday, our tech itself might scare people because of the pace at which the processing ability is developing. And so if you have, and the amount of data that we're able to generate on a day-by-day basis is increasing exponentially. So based on, we've got the processing ability on one side, alongside the increasing amount of data, where do you have the time in between to understand if the regulatory frameworks we have globally are catching up with that? And so it's going to be a conversation we're going to have for a long time. Which I think leads nicely into our last question.
Just yesterday, they were having the antitrust congressional meeting in the US, and this subject came up several times that do these tech companies have too much power? They have data on people. What are they using that data for? So I mean, currently you have one of the very, very important documentations around what can and can't be done. I think it's the GDPR. So EU GDPR is pretty solid. Even in a lot of African countries, you have Data Protection Act. In Ghana, we do have the Data Protection Act. It's decent. But then in Ghana, and in a lot of places, so the issue is whether if you are not truly following these guidelines, are there any ramifications? Is anyone really checking up? Like you go get a license and that's right about it. You don't know what I'm actually using users' data for. So there's a lot of complex discussion to be had, and this gets really sensitive when you get into healthcare. But there needs to be a balance to it, because for an example, in healthcare, or just generally in AI, if you do not have access to data, you cannot build systems that could potentially solve all kinds of problems. But at the same time too, if you just have access to any kind of data, that could be very, very dangerous to the privacy and security of individuals. So striking that right balance is a very tricky and complex thing.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think the more we talk about it, the more our current day concerns, you find how much more significant it's becoming to have the necessary daily conversations around AI, because we are generating the amount of data we generate on a daily basis, and the power that the large tech conglomerates, which I was saying to another colleague, to a certain point, we cannot entirely blame the organization for taking the data we have, because we willingly use their service at low cost. So we have to ask ourselves as users, where do we draw the line around what we allow with the mutilation of our digital identities through the non-ownership and the absolute destruction of the data that we are producing, because that's our footprint, online. You've got these billions of footprints. Where are they going? They're creating this endless road to nowhere. So essentially, I suppose, the way we can wrap up our conversation is, do you think enough is being done, Darlington, on this continent around AI ethics research to effectively inform current systems that are being built?
So if we look at it from the broader perspective of data and data science, then we could say the Data Protection Act is a good initiative. It's still very impressive that Africa, or a lot of African countries, actually did this before many Western countries, or even many countries around the world. The fact that we had Data Protection Act, and they hold conferences and then try to improve the procedures and then the documentations of this. So yeah, we've done quite some work specifically for AI. There are certain things that start to emerge when you're looking at AI that we haven't been able to address yet. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But then again, AI in Africa, even though it's growing rapidly, is still in its early ages. So some of these problems become visible as more AI solutions exist, and people start to realize that, okay, there is this ethical issue connected to this AI use case. If not, then it all becomes abstract. So the reason why US Congress is now very interested in the idea of what can be done with data now as opposed to 5-10 years ago, even though these same companies existed and were already collecting data, is that at that point it sounded too science fictional, too abstract. And so now that they finally realize that, okay, they do have a lot of data and they're using it for a lot of things that are debatable. So now they see the need for the conversation. It's unfortunate that regulation usually has to catch up to development and innovation. But I think for Africa, at least, the efforts that we are putting into ethics, it's slightly better as far as you are looking at the timeline. It's slightly better compared to some other places. I think some other places delayed for long, so there's a lot of work to be done, but still we've done quite a lot. African Union is coming up with a report that is going to have recommendations on AI ethics, regulations, policies, and all that. I mean, if we're already doing that at this stage, it's worth being proud of. It's worth applauding.
Absolutely. I'm so pleased we can end off on a positive note, because the benefit we have on this continent as well is the awareness of our diversity, which is usually our primary information. How would I say? To be able to inform us better of what we want to do. We always have that awareness that we need to serve a multitude of groups, not just one particular group, and have a more equitable outcome for anything that we want to do. So I think we're very much on the forefront with that. I'm very grateful and appreciative of the time you took to be with us today. You know, you're got a massively hectic schedule, but this is the first of many conversations to come about. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Have a nice day.
Yeah, absolutely, we will. And I will try not to mute myself on the next interviews I'm doing.
Sure.
For all our viewers on Facebook and going to watch us on YouTube, thanks very much for tuning in. This is the AI Africa Report. You heard Darlington speak, ending on a very positive note about what AI ethics and its ability or research currently means on this continent. So I'm very excited about that. And we will have many conversations going into the future. I would like to give my thanks to you for joining us. I would also like to say, coming up in the next couple of weeks, we will be interviewing, and I'm very happy to say, Prof. Tilipio Manwala at University of Johannesburg, who will be joining us towards the end of August, I think it would be. As well as we've got Shafeen Anwar Shah, who's of Giraffe, an award-winning app development company here in South Africa. Ashmita Bana, Nika's Technology Group CEO, who will be joining us. It was unfortunate she couldn't at the last time, and many more innovators from our continent. I'm glad you joined us this week for the AI Africa Report. I'm Nazreen Ibrahim. See you next time.